Good random choice. Wish I was there.
Use your imagination.
There's a song about that.
Howdy, everybody. Let's see. We're light right now. We're only carrying 14 passengers on board, so we need to chat for just a second. Yeah. Hi, Cynthia. You've been working hard on this today. You have no idea, band, the amount of time she puts into trying to corral us all. Dan, I get to say, I saw the latest band correspondence that was submitted on Neva, right? Yes. Yes. And it's so well done, really well done.
Well, you know, the band members have such fascinating lives that really these articles just write themselves. Anyway, I have a message for Greg right off the bat. Greg, can you hear me?
I think he's probably listening to some
rock. He's got his earbuds on. Anyway, well, Mo, my clarinet is at La Miranda Music for its annual checkup.
Yep.
So I won't be playing along with Greg.
It's no, you know what? One less clarinet won't hurt us tonight.
Well, that's because we don't have a performance.
Yeah, no. Jokes only.
Hey, Jan?
Yes.
When is the next band profile going to appear in the Rossmore Rag?
Well, Cindy's the one. So Neva's, I think, has already appeared, has it? And I just sent her one on Charlie. And I tell you, both Neva and Charlie, you need to know that I have the Rossmore News puts a limit on the word count. And it's so hard to leave out such interesting information. I mean, I could barely make a mention of, and I tell you, both need. Oh, okay. Anyway, apologies that I have to keep these articles pretty short. Anyway, they could be twice as long, 3 times.
Well, Jan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Jan, I just, tonight, Karen and I are supposed to talk.
Yes.
And we're not sure what the whole format of this thing is, but so, I think we're both going to just describe a rather brief journey from beginning to today. If there's anything that came up in the conversation with you and Maxfield that you would like to bring back up, feel free to ask about it. So it might enliven things a little bit.
Okay, I will do that.
And Charlie, there is no format. It's what you want it to be. It's about your experience with your daughter. And there's no format to that. Just, I sent you some ideas.
No, we know. And, I sort of kind of threw together sort of, how I started and kind of what's happened along the line.
Yeah.
And I think Karen is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We're both very lucky to be sharing so many years of music together. But it's pretty bland stuff. And
we'll be the judge.
Some interesting things that have come up along the line, and Jan knows a couple of them.
I didn't find the fire nozzle. Everybody be, prepared to hear the story about the fire nozzle. I didn't find that bland.
So we're up to we're at 24 people, and I like to keep things on time because it's the right thing to do if we're going to make this repeatable and predictable. So tonight, we got another one. Let's see. Okay, so tonight, here's what the program looks like, and it's packed. So I'll ask every participant to stay within their time limit. I have 5 minutes, and I just used 1.5 minutes of it. Then Greg, you have 10 minutes. It's called Finish the Scales, or the second scale. There's 10 minutes on the founder of the band. I'll be the person delivering the Vernon Brown history file. Then there's 10 minutes of jazz by Julia, 10 minutes of It's Not Jazz by Greg. Notice that. And then the Intergenerational, that would be Charlie and Karen, 15 minutes. So yeah, Greg, you got jazz and It's Not Jazz. So there we go. All right. So let's see, any questions? If there are any questions, could we hold them to the end and we just get started? Are we okay? Okay, so we're at about 23 people. I like to start around 30. So, but we're gonna get going. We know of a few people that are on vacation, but welcome everybody to what I think might be the 16th of the director's notes. I haven't kept track, but it seems like it, because it was the week after March 16th that we kicked in gear. You know, we just did it. So this is it. And some vacation. We know there's 3 or 4 people out on vacation. And that's all we know. So I'm going to turn this over to Greg for continuation of the scales presentation.
Okay. All right. So last time we dealt with the patterns 1 through 8, scale patterns 1 through 8 in B flat for the wind instruments and A for the violins. And we got through pattern 4. So we did the 3 scale type patterns and the first arpeggio pattern. And so I'm just going to demonstrate that first arpeggio pattern one more time. So those are scale steps 1, 3, 5, 3, over and over again 8 times. So the next thing to do would be to play it in the key of A for the string instruments. So string instruments, would you just play along with me? Mute yourselves, and then we'll play it together. I don't recall what tempo I used last week. I was guessing when I was thinking about it tonight at 75. Does anybody recall? Okay, that's what I'll use. Somebody have something? Somebody have a recollection?
It was somewhere around 80.
Okay. I'll go 78.
80. Maybe
Okay, so
faster than that.
this is pattern 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3 in the key of A concert. Anybody wants to play an A concert? Join us. Make sure you're muted, please. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next pattern is pattern 5. And this is the one with the tricky rhythm, because at this slow, with quarter notes and eighth notes in the first 4 patterns, this becomes quarter note triplets. And we talked about using strawberry, strawberry. And we also talked about the technical divisions for the rhythm. But I'm just going to play it. I'm going to play it in concert in B flat. And I'm going to ask you to join me. So go ahead and mute yourselves now. Join me on this. If you mess up, nobody's going to know, right? So by the end, you'll all catch it with me. Strawberry, strawberry, strawberry. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The next one is pattern 6. It goes back to eighth notes and it goes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5, 3. I'll demonstrate that really quickly at just a really fast tempo. Can we play that at 78 again in concert B flat? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Any questions about that much? Those 3 arpeggio patterns. Okay, great. So then we jump to the first pattern, pattern 7, that has arpeggio and scale. And it starts up the arpeggio to the 9th and comes down the scale. And I'll demonstrate it quickly. And notice there's a long note at the end, which is the tonic note or the first note of the scale that you come back down to in this particular case, which hasn't been happening in the past patterns. So let's play. I would like you to just take 30 seconds to practice that pattern.
George is goofing off.
I would be too. Okay.
No
let's try-
goofing off. Nobody's
let's try-
goofing off.
Let's
right?
try that together in the key of B flat, pattern 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, strings, let's do it in A. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we did that pattern 7, which goes up the arpeggio 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and down the scale. Now we're going to reverse that and go up the scale to 9 and then down the arpeggio. Again, we have the tonic note held at the end each time. So going back to concert B flat, winds, play with me. One, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. How much time do I have left?
I do.
Okay,
It's worth it.
question.
Hold on. What time do we have? What's the official time, Maxfield? Hold on.
45 currently.
What?
Yeah.
44.
One more minute. Greg.
One more minute?
Yeah, one more
Then we-
minute for my question.
Go.
So we've seen the scales. Not all of us are great at them, but we got the concept. Why did we study them? How do we put them to work? Give us an example of scale number 2. Put it to work. Is it for solos? Is it for improvisation? Is it for what, Greg? How do we do this?
The short answer, Mo, is everything.
Okay. Well, let's see an example of everything.
Well, pattern 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Knowing the scale step numbers in the long run will allow me to teach you some theory concepts that will benefit everybody. Knowing the scale step numbers allows you to transpose it into any key that you want to play. It allows you to begin exploring technique in various keys. ideally, whatever you can play in concert B flat, you can play in concert F sharp. So as a musician, that would be your goal.
But why
So
do we need this structure? Why do we need this exact scale? Tell me why. Yeah, I'm asking, why
Okay,
would we need
so
that
all I
structure?
can, after about 40 years of experience, I've found that this works really, really well.
I see. So this is a stepping stone though, right?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
yeah. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to get to. It's a
Okay.
stepping stone to the next level where you could use it and begin to improvise, correct?
Yes, you could use it to improvise. You can use it to improve your ability to read scales in music. For instance, if you have a B major scale in your part and you've looked at it and you say, oh, that has 5 sharps, it's a B major scale. You've got it under your fingers and in your ear already. You hardly have to read it.
Understood. Thanks. That was helpful.
You're welcome. Good.
Anybody else got a
Good.
question for Greg? Okay, thank you, Greg.
Okay,
We are-
thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
How about next? What are we doing for next week?
well, we'll get to that. Okay,
Okay.
so here we go. Next, it's the history of the band. I get 10 minutes. It may not take that long, it depends. I'm probably the only person besides, oh, hang on. Yeah, I'm unmuted. So I'll try to make it quick, but Vernon Brown's the guy we're going to talk about tonight because I came in 1996 and he drugged me over from a parade that I helped put a band in, which was the Orinda Volunteer Marching Band, the first year, 1984. And Vernon watched the parade and he said, I want you. And so he brought me over to what was then the Fun Band. And the year would be 96. And from that point, Vernon was the captain of the ship. He started the band. It was about 10 people. And so let's kick off some of the first pictures. That is Vernon Brown sitting in with Billy Buss. I know, Greg, you know who Billy Buss is.
Yeah.
Rossmore Big Band alumni who went on to Berkeley High School, graduated there, and he's a world-class trumpet player, performs in different countries all over the US. When he comes to the Bay Area, it's a sellout, and he's sitting on the tuba next to Vernon Brown at the concert at the Res. And I wanted you to see how the very first young person and Vernon Brown got to sit next to each other. And they stared at each other at first, and then they ended up being best friends. So I wanted to introduce you to the kindest, gentlest captain of the USS Strategy, World War II, Vernon Brown. Now on the left is the very first gig. Notice the bandstands didn't even have a logo on them. That's they came right out of the box from the factory. And that is the band you'll see on the right, on the far right, 3 back is Bob Athade in the back row with a beard. And let's see, and Bob Sutherland is in the front row, just below the bass player, the stand-up bass player. That's Bob Sutherland. And other than that, I can see lots of people, but most of them, in fact, all of them, with few exceptions, are in the big band in the sky. This picture was taken about 1997. And it was taken, particularly, this was a big band dance up at Temple Isaiah for a fundraiser. It was our first ever playing out in tuxedo with bandstands and music. On the right of this is Vernon Brown in the front row, and he played something different than a tenor sax. I'm gonna ask Greg to kick in here. Greg, that's a C, was that right? C melody, is that right? Greg?
That's right, Mo. It's a C melody saxophone. C melody saxophone is size-wise between an alto and a tenor.
And why would we see that saxophone as opposed to the tenor or the alto? Is that a period piece of instrument, back in the 20s or 30s, or are they still around?
Yeah, well, they exist, but not very many of them.
Yeah.
Even when I was a boy, they were fairly rare.
Yes.
It was a saxophone that was used in the 1920s in jazz. There's a famous saxophonist who used it and made a beautiful recording on it. And I'm losing his name right now. But the song's called "Singing the Blues," and it's a beautiful record with. Frankie Trombauer is the saxophone player. Frankie Trombauer plays the opening chorus on C melody saxophone. It's just beautiful. And then Bix Beiderbecke plays a beautiful cornet solo right after that. So it's a very significant recording for early jazz, Singing the Blues. The saxophone was invented by Adolph Sax in 1841. And when he did that, he intended it to be a mixture of woodwind instruments and their facility and brass instruments, their power. And he intended to have them be used in the symphony orchestra. And as we know, there's a family of B flat and E flat saxophones, where we have the B flat soprano, the B flat tenor, the B flat bass saxophone. We have the E flat sopranino saxophone, the E flat alto saxophone, the E flat baritone saxophone, and the E flat contrabass saxophone. So that's two families of saxophones, one pitched in E flat, one pitched in B flat, and those are ones we're familiar with now. But when Adolph invented the saxophone, he had four families.
Yeah.
He had one in C, one in F, one in B flat, and one in E flat. So C melody is the only surviving member of those other two families.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So we could go to the next slide and I'll get into, Vernon is on the far left with his saxophone, and the guy that's standing up directing is the first, and by the way, that's Bob Sutherland in the back row. And, but directing is a really famous guy. He was the first ever director of the Fun Band, and which is now the Rossmore Big Band. And that's pretty much the size of the band. It was like 7, 8, or 9 people. And that is Phil Hardiman. And I'll bet that Greg knows who Phil Hardiman was, right? You've heard the name?
Yes, Phil Hardiman is a legendary music educator from Berkeley.
Yes. And I could read you a lot about him, but he's responsible for, if you will, bringing jazz as we know it back to the high schools. And he started with the Berkeley High School District, but it spread across America. And just like Greg's won the Monterey Jazz Festival and many other competitions, the Berkeley High Jazz Band did the same under Phil Hardiman. He also wrote a lot of music. And if you go to Bob Athade's class, a jazz class, you'll probably end up playing some of Phil Hardiman's music. I played Season of Dreams. The reason I'm bringing it up is Phil Hardiman had a accident and he lost a lung. He was a trumpet player, and so therefore he took over directing this band. And he handed me the baton in 1996. Vernon Brown was the one that, if you will, married us, because he went and got me. So Vern was the captain of what's called a minesweeper in World War II. Now, minesweepers are just that. A mine is a floating bomb under the water, and the Japanese put thousands of them in so that the merchant ships and our Navy ships would blow up. You couldn't see them, they weren't on radar, you just ran into them. And this is Vern's first ship, the USS Strategy, which he took out of Seattle as the original captain of the ship. He sailed it to San Diego, and then it was off to war. The year would be 1943. It was the Admiral class minesweeper built for the US Navy during World War II. She had a courageous and adventurous life in clearing minefields in areas controlled by the Japanese. She survived attacks by Japanese gunfire and planes and won 4 battle stars for her service under battle conditions. She was laid down on October 4th, 1943, under the command on September 22nd, 1944, of Lieutenant V.A. Brown, United States Navy, in command. So he took her out right out of the dock. She was attached to the mine division in Lahaina and then sent off from there to Iwo Jima. She was put to work 3 days before the invasion of the most important invasion during World War II in the Japanese theater, and that was the invasion to capture Iwo Jima. And let's see. She also helped out in Okinawa, which was one of the war's heaviest attacks. And an enemy plane made a gliding approach and almost took her out, but it took out a merchant ship. And here's the reason I'm telling you this story. Flames shot out from the merchant ship, and the guns from the strategy soon had it blazing, but it blanked and crashed into the USS Logan Victory. That was our ship. Vern and his crew rescued 48 survivors out of the water. And why do I bring this up? When I went to his home, in his den on the wall are all kinds of plaques, all kinds of medals. And I said, what are they, Vern? And he wouldn't barely talk about it. But he was responsible personally for jumping off the ship into the water and rescuing 8 different sailors between 4 different wrecks that they rescued our sailors from. And particularly, there was a submarine accident, and our guys were in the water, and it was a lot of flames, and he jumped in and he brought 2 guys on board himself. Now, captains are not supposed to leave the ship ever. And he broke rank, and he jumped in, and he got a medal because people were dying. I just share with you that knowing Vernon Brown and knowing that he started what is now the Big Band of Rossmore, and sharing that information with you is it's a highlight in my 24 years with the band, because he would be delighted to know that you know who he is and that music was in his heart. I call him my quiet hero. We're getting near the end, I think. So there was a lot of turbulence when he brought me into the band. People didn't like having a young person. I didn't live in Rossmore, and I was asking them to read music that was orchestrated. They did not have orchestrated music. Everybody playing the same note on the same piece of paper. Can you imagine? Well, it was very, a lot of turmoil, and I wanted to basically get up and leave. I can't tell you how many times they tried to cut me off. It wasn't fun. And every time I was frustrated, here's what he said: Mo, no matter what, steady as she goes, but more importantly, hold course. And that's what we've done. And I want you to know that Vernon Brown was my mentor and a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And he encouraged all of us to do the best we could. And I think we'll go to the last slide. Is that right? Maxfield, do we have any more?
Yes.
Yeah. And that is Vernon Brown and his obituary. And I want you to know that he is and was the quiet hero from World War II. Vernon Brown, rest in peace. Back to you. Okay, what is next? How come I can't find it?
That was really a great presentation, Mo. Yeah, thank you. I think it helps us all to get a feeling of where we've come from.
He is where we come from.
Beautiful and very powerful. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Hey Mo,
Yes.
was Herm Cordes in that original band also?
Yeah, that first picture, or the picture with, if you went back to the picture that Phil Hardiman was standing in front of the band, I don't know if you can go back to that, but Jan Cordes is right there, and Herm Cordes is a bit out of view. But anyway, they both were there. And Herm Cordes just died, Maxfield, what, maybe 4 years ago?
Just about.
Yeah, so he was one of the last originals.
There you go.
Okay, so if you take a look at the far right, that is Jan Cordes. She's an original founder of the band. And Herm Cordes is on trumpet, but you can't see him. He would be next to Bob Sutherland in the back. And notice there's a banjo in the back row. Oh, yeah. So, okay. We're moving on, and thank you for those comments. That was really nice. Okay, now we're going to end with our very first ever intergenerational. By that, we mean there's a dad and a daughter, or a dad and a son, or a mom and a son, or a mom and a daughter. But there's two generations within our own band that are playing together. And it was thought that it would be great to hear from these groups. I believe we have identified 4 in the band right now, but there's many others, like Maxfield. You played with your mom, Margaret, for some years, and I got an email from her, and she wants to join in with you and do a segment on what it was like back then in the Stone Age to play in the band with you, okay, when you were just a little puppy. So there are many examples of that. Stephen Falk, the past city manager of Lafayette, and his daughter Angela and son Nathan. Anyway, we'll go into detail, but tonight is the premiere because it's Charlie Schretzmann and his daughter Karen Moe, both of them very loyal to the big band of Rossmore, and we can't do it without you two. And I'm sure everybody admires that you guys work together and produce music and have this in common. So at that point, I'm going to turn over to the senior member, which would be Charlie, and take it from here. Oh, Charlie.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yep.
Okay, well, I thought perhaps each of us would just spend a couple of minutes taking us through our separate journeys from beginning to today, and then kind of open it up to questions or whatever. Thinking about my own journey and how to describe it, not exactly typical, and I found myself, having watched some Monty Python the last 2 nights, loving one of my favorite expressions of theirs, which is, and now for something completely different. I joined our grammar school band when I was starting in the 5th grade. They had a fife and drum corps, and I was immediately hooked. They gave me an Army G bugle to start figuring out how to make sound out of a bugle. And about a month later, they gave me a piston bugle. Now that may not be familiar to too many people, but a piston bugle had limited notes because it only had one valve, and the valve was played with your thumb. And so it was basically a B-flat instrument. At any rate, within a year, the powers that be decided to switch from being a fife and drum corps to a drum and bugle corps. Now, you might be familiar with the Concord Blue Devils. They are a current drum corps. It's been around for years and years. Nowadays, I think they play with trumpets and every other instrument. When we did it 60 years ago, we had the equivalent of a trumpet, a French horn, and a baritone, and all 3 were done with just a single finger. And so we had, I think, 28 horns and 12 drums, and it's a big sound. Anyway, I did that for 6 years. And then when I became a senior in high school, my parents got me my first trumpet. I took a year of lessons from a New York retired symphonic trumpeter. Then I went off to college. And in college, I played with a small combo, and I did that for a couple of years after college. And my reading was limited to looking at a fake book, and I could recognize notes, and I was even able to transpose them from piano music to B flat. But I never paid much attention, and I didn't know anything really about the note values. I basically played by ear. We were playing songs that I knew, and at that time, the music just helped me to, if I wasn't sure, spot what the right note was. Anyway, shortly after getting out of college, I started doing an awful lot of travel. And so musical opportunities kind of went away. And so probably from 1967 to 1987, when I moved out here to California, most of my playing was at home. I would put an LP on my stereo. I'd stick a mute in the horn, and I'd play along with the band. And I did that, as I say, for a good 20 years. When I got here to the Bay Area, my then future wife introduced me to a neighbor and somebody that had school kids of a similar age. He played in the community band, and when she told him I played, he said, well, come on and down and join us. I said, well, I don't read music. And, oh, don't worry about it. Come on down and join us. Well, I eventually decided to do it. It was a very difficult thing, but fortunately we had many practices before we had a performance, and I was able, struggle through. Initially I played with the La Miranda community band, then the San Ramon band, and the Martinez community band. The nice thing was, with each of those, right after she got out of college, Karen came back and resumed playing, which he hadn't done in college, and joined me in all three community bands. And so really we've been playing together ever since. I think it was 2008 when my wife and I first heard the Rossmore Big Band. We went to a Christmas show that they did at the Ream Theater, and I came away loving the sound and thinking that maybe I could fit in. And it was probably the next fall, because again, with travels, that I finally contacted Mo's secretary, Janet, who my wife knew well. And through her, Mo said, yeah, okay, come on down, sit in one night. And I didn't think I did too well, but Bob Sutherland said he can fit in. And so I've been there since. And one last comment before I turn it over to Karen, and that's that all 6 of our children dabbled in music. I'm delighted that Karen came right back after college. Her brother Brian has also continued to play, but he lives in Sacramento, and so our musical paths don't cross too often. But at any rate, that was kind of my journey, and now I'll turn it over to Karen.
All right. Thanks, Dad. Nice job. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you great.
Awesome.
And Charlie, nice
Very
job.
good.
I agree.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I will just add a couple little sprinklings in throughout my childhood. And one thing is, as my dad said, he would put on a record and, play along. And that's what I remember as a child. There was always a record turning on the turntable.
And
and
you realize Karen Moe was Charlie Schretzmann's daughter.
I thought some of you might be surprised by this tonight. Yeah.
Flute, and he plays the trumpet. She sits right in front of me in the band.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were daughter. And
so he would always have, a record on, and he would just pick up his trumpet and he would, like he said, play along, but he wouldn't just play along. He would harmonize. And I remember being amazed that he could just create something that went with the music, but wasn't just playing along with the music. It was complementing the music. And it was amazing to me because I still do not play by ear. My dad has this very natural gift that didn't trickle into my musical genes. And so I just remember as a child being shocked and amazed by how effortlessly he could do that. And it was just constant, and if he didn't have the trumpet, he was whistling, and he would just whistle a little harmony along to whatever record was going. But it was never any typical music. It was always very Latin music. Some, big band kind of stuff, which for me as a kid was very strange and weird and not what, normal music should have been. And then he also was very into Julio Iglesias, which, my brother and I, being kids, had to just give him a bad time because that's what you do when you're kids with your parents. So
I'm going to step in real quick here.
Yeah.
Somebody's got an open mic. There's a bunch of sound coming through, clicking or plastic or something. if you could just check your open mics and make sure that you're on mute, okay? Resume. Thanks so much.
All right, you're welcome. And the other interesting thing was there was a little local restaurant that would do just sort of an open mic kind of night where people could just come and bring instruments and play. And so it was, you know, it was a nice little restaurant, but we would go there quite a bit. And my dad would get up and, you know, play the trumpet, which of course as a child seemed to be hours upon hours. But we spent many, many, many weekends at this little restaurant called Whispers. And same thing, he would just jump up and just join in and be able to just seamlessly play whatever, you know, whatever was being played. So it was, you know, it was pretty amazing to kind of just grow up with all of that sort of music happening, you know, in the background. And then I, you know, in 4th grade, I picked up the flute, you know, in you know, school, you got, it wasn't a big choice. I don't remember how many different things, there were maybe 3 choices. And I decided I wanted to play the flute, and I, you know, I really loved it right away. Thought it was great. You know, we did a local parade every year that I got to march in, and, you know, that was super fun. And so I played, and it was all mostly, you know, symphonic orchestral type of things. And then when I moved out to California and got to JM, they had me play and said, awesome, you can go be in the jazz band because you're good. This is great. And I got to jazz band, and it was all improv and all playing by ear. And I mean, the music wasn't even written on the page. There were like these little scribbles that kind of looked like Greg's scales and notes and patterns. And then everybody was just playing. And I remember just being completely and totally overwhelmed by that. So that was a little semester for me to kind of experience that I didn't love, but I appreciated the talent that was around me for sure. And then I continued playing in high school. And one of the high school highlights was the school musical had a teeny tiny orchestra pit, which was mostly strings, but they wanted a flute player. So I was the one flute who played, you know, for the high school musicals, which was really, really fun. I really loved doing that. That was great. And then, like my dad said, I didn't play in college. So I kind of took those, you know, couple years off. And then, you know, I was back here for a couple years, and then he was playing in San Ramon, and I just kind of missed playing. So I started playing again in San Ramon, and then I kind of migrated with him to the Martinez band. And then I migrated with him into the Rossmore Big Band. So, and I had gone to see the Rossmore Big Band play a couple times, you know, and got to see my dad solo, which, you know, was just fabulous to just kind of watch him shine, you know, in his performances. And so when he said, you know, he thought there would be an opening for a flute player, you know, that I could, you know, come and sit in and give it a try, I was really pretty excited to be part of that group with him, because it was really cool to see him up front excelling with it. And so I came, and the first rehearsal I came to was when we all listened to the King David Suite. So I got to be part of that experience, and, you know, that whole story, which was, you know, pretty fascinating. And I came in right at the end of Frank's tenure, but I did get to work with Frank Chroma, which again was something that I just really loved, because I had heard about him a lot from my dad. So to have that shared experience and get to know Frank with my dad too was pretty amazing. And let's see, anything else? I think that's it. I'll just say, you know, 2 more quick things. My aunt, my dad's sister, was out one summer when we did the concert at the Res, and she was beside herself to be able to, you know, see the 2 of us performing together. And, you know, so that was a big, really fun thing to be able to do in front of my aunt. And then the other thing I'll just say is one of my favorite songs that we play is West Side Story. And I love it. I love, you know, most of what Frank did, just because he had such a gift. But I love that it features my dad on just this beautiful solo, but it also has these really super fun flute parts in it. And so that's a really special song for us to be able to play together. And I think that's it.
Well, I'm going to kind of take it from here, because it's our first ever. And one of the goals would be for us to hear, in short term, what kind of experience it is, Charlie, for you to play and sit in the band, and that's your daughter in the band. Does that change the experience? Karen, same thing. I mean, I know I'm threading the needle for you, and I know the answer, but I think we deserve to hear what a joy it is, or what, you know, what's it like to make music together as a father-daughter? That's something special that most of us don't have the opportunity to do. So can you take 1 minute max, because we're running low, and give us anything that would tell us what it's like?
Well, it's really special. You know, when you have a love for something, as really both of us do for music, but for me, you know, to actually see one of our kids pick it up and love it just as much, and beyond that, share in a type of music that my compatriots, I mean, the people my age growing up in the mid 60s, everybody gravitated to rock and roll. I didn't, but and again for Florence, for Karen, for both of us to be playing big band has just been a wonderful experience, and to be able to share it with her is terrific. I wish my father had lived to see this. He loved big band. He was a walking encyclopedia. He knew everything about all the big bands of the 30s and 40s. And, you know, it would have been really something for him to have seen it, but it's been a wonderful experience.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, and that's part of what made it so special for my aunt, you know, my dad's sister, to be able to come out and see the two of us perform together. And yeah, I mean, I do remember, you know, growing up at my grandparents' house too, just the big band albums, you know, just lining the bookshelf. So it's just kind of neat to sort of see it all kind of come full circle. You know, and as I said, you know, just in watching the big band too, it's really neat for me to be experiencing something in an environment where my dad really shines. Is just really special for me. So.
Well, I think I speak for everybody in the band, how special it is to have the two of you share our music, and we get to share with you. Thank you for expressing yourself, a bunch of history, and are we proud to be in the same band with both of you. So thank you, bravo to the two of you, yes, from everybody. So we're gonna wind it up. First of all, next week, it's the same opening. I'll be giving you some direction and some ideas on what we're going to do next week, but here's what the lineup is. The question to Greg by Cynthia was, how do you swing it? How to swing, Greg? So a lesson from Greg is how to swing. And Greg, that's a big assignment, I'm sure, but we appreciate that. Next, there'll be a segment on history. I intend to present to you the very first singer, a vocalist that was with the band when I came there she actually came a little after I came. Her name is Countess Felder. She was inducted into the Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame. You'll see pictures of her with the band, and I would like to relate to you the history of Countess Felder, her daughter who sung with the band, Charlene White, and her grandson, Styles White. And I believe they'll all be joining us, except Countess. Countess is in the big band in the sky. And then there'll be an intergenerational presentation, just like Karen and Charlie tonight, although it'll be Josh and Catherine, both playing trombones in our band. And they're going to do the next intergenerational presentation. And then, for the first time, a new module being introduced for the first time, and there'll be many of them. We're asking for, and we're getting responses for our student associate alumni. These are people who played in the band 5, 10, and 15 years ago to report for duty and let you know what their experience was in the band, what they learned, how they put it to work, whether it be in music or in their business or in their teaching, and where they are today. And I've asked them to give you, the students, a bit of a view of what it's like to leave high school, go through college, and they're 5 and 8 years in after that. Kind of just a preview of what it feels like for them. So this is called a Student Associate Alumni Presentation. I think you'll find them very interesting. There's a host of those young people who are in their 20s to 32-year-old range that would love to talk to you and be a bit of a mentor, if you don't mind, because that's what I've asked them to do. Paint a picture of what it looks like up ahead for students, okay? And that'll be the night. So I appreciate everybody. We all kept to the time limits really well tonight. I want to thank Greg. I want to thank, and I know we all want to thank Greg and Maxfield Cynthia, Jan for your publicity. Gosh, am I missing anybody? I hope not. But anyway, have a good week. We'll see you back here next Wednesday night.
Erwin
Thank you.
too.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you.
No music, Max? What's the deal?
Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah.
Oh,